going on, y'all? This is BoxingWave. Before I get started, I just want to say rest in peace to Dan Goosen. Okay, he gave a lot of people opportunities in the sport of boxing and even outside of the sport of boxing. Okay, one of the top promoters of today, and I just wanted to say my condolences to his close friends, his relatives, anyone that he's ever given the opportunity to in boxing and everything that he's done for the sport overall. Okay, sad day in boxing. All right, big loss, huge loss in boxing, and rest in peace to him. Okay, I'm not gonna get into it with Andre Ward and stuff because right now it's really not about that right now. Okay, now moving on to the topic of the day. I haven't done a retro video in a while. Okay, and I figure I do one on this fight because this fight is such a major fight because. Not only because it was such a great fight, but because of the controversial ending, okay, to the fight. Chavez Sr. against Meldrick Taylor. Classic fight, all right? Both were undefeated at the time. This fight is like 25 years ago. Had a controversial ending. And still, you see in boxing, we still have endings like this today in the sport, all right? 25 years later, we still have the same type of endings, all right? Okay, so both of them was undefeated, but Chavez was already a legend at this time. Like, Chavez already had like 60-something wins with no losses, okay? Taylor was undefeated, but, he didn't have the extensive record that Julio Cesar Chavez did at this time. All right, I'm not going to go break down the fight round per round or anything because I think most people would agree that Meldrick Taylor was winning the fight up into the last round, all right? I gave Chavez the second round. And I think he won the last couple rounds, all right? I think when the 12th round came, the momentum was kind of shifting back into his favor because even though Taylor was winning rounds, it seemed like Chavez's punches had more effect on Taylor than Taylor's punches had on Chavez. Taylor was throwing a lot of punches in that fight, all right? He was landing consistently, okay? His movement gave Chavez a lot of trouble in there. Okay, his speed, his overall athleticism seemed like it was too much for Chavez and he was outboxing him. But Chavez was landing some hard shots and it seemed like it bothered Taylor throughout the fight to me. Okay, when I go back and watch it, I watched it a few days ago, all right? So let's talk about the 12th round now. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe this is the fight here. This fight here is the fight that made people hate Richard Steele. Okay, this is the first fight that made people hate him and boo him every time he was announced in the fight. All right, there's been other fights, but I think this is the first fight that made people feel like he was the worst referee. All right, not saying that he is, okay, but I mean even in this fight, I thought he refereed a good fight up into that 12th round. All right, so let's talk about it. Meldrick Taylor goes down at the end of the fight. It's about maybe 16, 17 seconds left. All right. He got up like after 5-6 seconds. He got up, but Meldrick Taylor was badly beaten in the face. Okay. He could barely stand on his feet. He was holding the ropes the entire time of the count, even when he got up. And he was out of it. All right, if this happened in the beginning of the round, there's no way he would have finished the round, in my opinion. All right, but because I think people are so outraged because if it wasn't 2-3 seconds left of the fight, the stoppage, because Richard Steele did stop the fight. If there wasn't 2 or 3 seconds left, I don't think people would have been as outraged. Okay. People wanted, because Taylor was winning the whole fight, I think people wanted Steele to let the fight continue because they knew the fight would have been over and would have went to decision, and that would have been it. Taylor possibly would have gotten the victory by decision because he was winning the fight. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I believe Taylor's corner told him that he needed a knockout, okay? Even though he was winning pretty decisively, his corner told him he needed a knockout because at the time, Chavez was a superstar. Okay, he was already a legend. And, the crowd was in favor for Chavez. That's just the way it is. So I think his corner told Taylor that he needed a knockout. And in the 12th round, he didn't cruise through the 12th round. He fought as if he needed to win desperately. Okay, he stood in front of Chavez and exchanged with Chavez. And like I said earlier in this video, Chavez shots were just a little bit more effective to me. All right. You can see it in Taylor's face. Look at Chavez's face. Look at Taylor's face. Even in the second fight, you can just tell Chavez just seemed like, even though Chavez wasn't a huge puncher, you can just tell that Chavez punches had a lot more effect on Taylor. All right. So I think people are outraged because they wanted Richard Steele to use some discretion. The fight was already over, regardless if he stopped it or not. If he didn't stop the fight, Taylor probably would have got the decision. But if he had stopped the fight in any other round at the same time, I think that would have been a justifiable stoppage, in my opinion. Because Taylor he didn't have anything left at that point. Okay? His face looked awful. Okay? He can barely open his eyes. He wasn't standing well, all right? His hands were both on the ropes, I believe. Both hands was on the ropes, I believe, all right? But maybe just one. But we've seen stoppages over the years. I mean, even recently. I mean, look at George Groves and Carl Froch. Look at that stoppage. Look at the Coyote and Louis Ortiz fight recently. Okay, look at that stoppage. Everything is always controversial when it comes to a stoppage, all right? If the fighter is not completely knocked out. But those examples I just gave you, George Groves and from the first fight, and even the Coyote fight where he got stopped by Ortiz. You can even go to fights, you can even go to fights like the Mickey Bay fight where he was stopped by John Molina, okay? Even in that fight, I thought Mickey Bay was in better condition than Meldrick Taylor. All right, Meldrick Taylor was in bad condition. All right, he got dropped and he was hurt bad. All right, even if I go even further, a fight that Richard Steele was actually the ref for, Mike Tyson against Razor Ruddock, the first fight. If you look at that fight, a lot of people disliked Richard Steele and thought that Richard Steele was getting paid by Don King because of this fight. Because Mike Tyson, throughout the fight, if you watch that fight, Mike Tyson was punching him in the middle of the break. Okay, he was punching him after the bell. He was throwing low blows, and he didn't get points taken from him for it. Okay, Richard Steele was just warning him over and over again, and Tyson did something every single round. It was an ugly fight. It was a very ugly fight. And I don't even think that stoppage needed to happen. Razor Ruddock was ready to go. He was still ready to go. I mean, he was hurt. But these are all fights where the fight was stopped and none of these guys were anywhere near in the same condition as Meldrick Taylor in that fight. In fact, I don't even think Meldrick Taylor was ever the same after this fight. He really wasn't the same. All right? So, me, in my opinion, you got to call it either two ways. Was it an unnecessary stoppage? Or was it a classic comeback? Which one do you want to call it? Did Taylor get robbed? Or did Chavez come back and win the fight? In my opinion, Chavez won the fight. All right? It was a good stoppage, in my opinion. What makes it a bad stoppage is because Taylor was winning the whole fight. But as far as the stoppage itself, it was a good stoppage. It's just that the timing of the stoppage, when there was 2 seconds left, there would have been enough. There wasn't enough time to throw another punch. Okay, if Steele just let the guy stand and finish the rest of the fight, then Taylor probably would have won the decision. But the people that think that Taylor was robbed, you gotta admit, in that case, you would have wanted Richard Steele to have some discretion for him because he was winning the fight. You understand what I'm saying? So the stoppage was legit. But we all know that Taylor was winning the fight. It depends on whatever way you look at it. All right? So I wouldn't call it a robbery, in my opinion. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a robbery. All right? Taylor fought a terrible 12th round. That was not a smart 12th round. You don't go for the knockout when you're that much ahead and you really haven't even hurt your opponent. You don't do it. It was a terrible... the strategy was just the wrong plan. It was the wrong game plan, and he paid for it, and he lost. He lost. It happens. It's part of the game. It's part of the sport. All right. So that's my thoughts on it. You know, I would love to hear from you guys. You guys, especially you older guys that's been around and you was actually watching it live and was, you know, whatever, if you was there or, you know, you've been having this argument for years, but I mean, I had just watched it again a few days ago, and I wanted to speak on it, you know, and speak on Richard Steele. You know, what do you think about him? You know, I think, you know, I mean, I really can't fault him for that fight. I think either way would have been fine with me. You know, if he had gave him a little discretion and gave Taylor the fight, you know, who knows? I think a robbery would have been if this is another point I wanted to bring up. Now, let's just say that the fight finished, all right? He let the fight go out, the time ran out, and then went to the decision. What if the judges gave Chavez the fight by decision? That would have been a robbery to me. That's like, even with the knockdown, that's still like 8 rounds to 4. At most, 9 rounds to 3, 8 rounds to 4. In my opinion. All right. So I would have been more disappointed if he let the fight continue and then it went to decision and they gave it to Chavez anyway. That would have been a good reason for outrage. But the fact that the knockdown was legit, he was out on his feet. Okay. I don't think he was in condition to continue. He didn't have to continue because it was the end of the fight. But it was a good stoppage, in my opinion. All right. There's fighters that have been in a much, not nearly as bad in a position as Taylor was, and the fight was stopped anyway. Okay. So anyway, let me know what you guys say. I really want to hear from you guys. I really want some feedback for this video because this was a big time fight. Okay, one of the most controversial fights of all time, and I want to hear from you guys. All right, peace.